There are a lot of common myths about belts that people get wrong, but everyone repeats them. I used to repeat them all the time. I'm sure I still do say some of them every now and again. One of them is that you need a belt to lift heavy, and that's absolutely not true. Look, this is our belt. We're making money off this thing. So please trust me when I say that you don't need a belt. It's an enhancer in many circumstances, but it is not a requirement. On the other hand, you have an entirely different group of people saying that if you lift with a belt, it's going to weaken your core. And there's only one way that's going to happen. If you use the belt and you don't go any heavier or do any more reps than normal, that is, the belt enhances your intra-abdominal stability and pressure, but you're like, I'll just use this to make the lifting easier and I won't do anything about it, then absolutely your core can weaken a little bit because now you're using the belt for stuff your core is supposed to be used for. Here's the real way to use the belt. You use the belt in order to be able to do more reps or more load with your traditional exercises. So instead of doing stiff-legged deadlifts with 225 pounds for sets of 8, maybe you do 245 pounds because your intra-abdominal stability is so amazing now. That way, the belt covers those 20 pounds. Your core gets just as strong as if you're doing it beltless. But here's the main benefit. Your hamstrings are limited only by the load. If you're doing 225 for stiff-legged deadlifts, your hamstrings are only getting that stimulus. And because you're doing it beltless, your intra-abdominal region, your whole abdomen is getting stronger. Amazing. If you use 245 pounds because of the belt, your core gets just as strong because the extra 20 pounds is coming from belt carryover. But if you use your belt plus your Versa Gripps, and now you're using 245 pounds, that's 20 more pounds of stimulus per rep for your hamstring. That's a very, very big deal because before you might have been limited by your core. You could have technically done 225 for sets of 10 instead of 8, or you could have done 245 for sets of 8 instead of 225. The reason you couldn't is because your technique would break down because your intra-abdominal pressure wasn't high enough. That was a limiting factor. Why limit yourself to only what your core can do regular? And that brings us into another myth, is that the belt is a crutch, but the belt is actually an enhancer. Because when someone looks at how gigantic your hamstrings are or your quads are, and you tell them, hey, one of the reasons they're so big is because when I train with a belt, I can lift more weight or do more reps. That's what lets me push my hamstrings and quads to the next level instead of being limited by my core. Are people going to be like, well, you didn't really earn it? What does that even mean? We use the belt just the same way that we use the Versa Gripps as an enhancer. The Versa Gripps do not make your grip weaker. They keep your grip just as strong by letting you use more load. Your grip should be the limiting factor, even with Versa Gripps at some level. But now, instead of doing 10 reps of some sort of pull-up, you're doing 15 reps of some sort of pull-up. And your lats, your pulling muscles, are also your limiting factor. Eventually, your grip might give out. But the extra buffer that gives you more stimulus to the muscles you want. So when you're using the Hyperbelt, it is enhancing you as long as you accept the challenge and do more that the Hyperbelt allows you. This is not a crutch. This is an enhancer.